It's late. You've turned off the lights. The room is quiet. Your body is tired, genuinely tired, the kind of tired that should pull you under within minutes. But something else is happening. Your mind. Your mind has other plans. It starts small. A thought about tomorrow. A meeting you need to prepare for. A conversation you had earlier today that didn't go the way you wanted. And then, without your permission, without any invitation whatsoever, your mind begins to unspool. It replays that conversation. It rewrites it. It imagines what you should have said. Then it jumps, suddenly, violently, to something from 3 years ago, something you thought you'd forgotten, something embarrassing, something painful. And now your heart is beating faster. Your jaw is tight. Your eyes are open in the dark. You didn't ask for any of this. You wanted sleep. You needed sleep. But your mind has become a late-night talk show host who refuses to stop talking, interviewing ghosts from your past, rehearsing disasters that haven't happened, narrating a future that may never arrive. And here's the part that nobody talks about. It's not just that you can't sleep. It's that you feel trapped. Trapped inside your own head. Because the harder you try to stop thinking, the louder the thoughts become. The more desperately you chase silence, the more noise your mind produces. It's as if there's someone inside you who doesn't want you to rest. Someone who believes that if you stop thinking, even for a moment, something terrible will happen. I want to talk about this tonight. Not to give you a technique, not to hand you a 5-step method for better sleep, but to show you something about the nature of your mind that, once seen, changes your entire relationship with those sleepless hours. Something that Buddhist practitioners have understood for over 2,500 years. Something that modern neuroscience is only now beginning to confirm. Because the problem isn't that your mind won't shut off. The problem is that you've never been shown what your mind actually is, what it's doing in the dark, and why fighting it is the very thing that keeps you awake. So let's look. Together. Gently. Think about the last time you couldn't sleep. Really think about it. What was your mind doing? If you pay close attention, you'll notice a pattern. The mind at night doesn't think randomly. It has a very specific tendency. It gravitates toward 2 places, the past and the future. It pulls you backward into things that have already happened, conversations that are over, mistakes that can't be undone, moments of shame or regret that are long gone from the external world but somehow still alive, burning, inside your skull. Or it launches you forward into things that haven't happened yet, scenarios, predictions, rehearsals of catastrophe. What if this happens? What if they think that? What if I'm not enough? What if everything falls apart? Notice something crucial. In neither case is the mind dealing with what is actually happening right now. Right now you're lying in a bed. Right now, the room is dark and quiet. Right now, in this very moment, there is no emergency. There is no threat. There is nothing that needs to be solved, fixed, or fought. The body knows this. That's why it's tired. The body is ready to rest because the body lives in the present moment. But the mind doesn't live in the present. Not without training. The mind lives in a self-generated world of stories, projections, and interpretations. And at night, when all external stimulation is removed, when there's no task to focus on, no screen to stare at, no conversation to engage in, the mind is left alone with itself. And that's when you discover something unsettling. The mind doesn't know how to be still. This is not a personal failing. This is not because you're anxious, or broken, or weak. This is the default mode of the untrained mind. Every human being who has ever lived has experienced this. The Buddha himself described it with extraordinary precision. In the Pali texts, there's a word for this, Papañca. It's usually translated as mental proliferation or conceptual spreading. But those translations don't capture the felt experience. Papañca is what happens when one thought gives birth to another, and that thought gives birth to 3 more, and those 3 become 10, and suddenly you're lost in a jungle of thinking that has no center, no direction, and no end. It's the mind feeding on itself. A thought about a deadline becomes a thought about your career, which becomes a thought about your worth as a person, which becomes a thought about whether you'll ever be enough, which becomes a nameless dread that sits on your chest like a stone. The Buddha saw this process with absolute clarity. He taught that Papañca is one of the primary sources of human suffering, not because thinking is bad, but because we don't see it happening. We're so identified with the stream of thought that we don't realize we're being carried away by it. We believe every story the mind tells. We treat every mental scenario as if it were real. And at night, lying in the dark with nothing to distract us, we are fully at the mercy of this process. But here's what the Buddha also saw, and this is where everything begins to shift. You are not the one generating these thoughts. There is no little person sitting inside your head, deliberately choosing to think about that embarrassing thing from 2019. Thoughts arise on their own, from causes and conditions, most of which you're not even aware of. A sensation in your body triggers a memory. That memory triggers an emotion. That emotion triggers a cascade of associated thoughts. It's a chain reaction, automatic, impersonal, and mechanical. In Buddhism, this is called dependent origination, paticca samuppada. It means that nothing arises independently. Every mental event is the result of prior conditions. Your sleepless thoughts aren't random. They're not proof that something is wrong with you. They're the natural output of a mind that has been fed certain inputs, stress, unresolved emotion, habitual worry, and is now processing them the only way it knows how, by thinking endlessly in circles. Let me offer you something right now. Not a theory. An experience. Wherever you are, whatever position you're in, I want you to pause. Don't close your eyes unless you want to. Just wait. Wait for your next thought. Actively watch for it, the way a cat watches a mouse hole. Just sit there and wait for the next thought to appear. Did you notice what happened? For most people, when they actively watch for a thought, the thoughts slow down or briefly stop altogether. There's a gap. A space. A moment of pure awareness with no content. That gap is important. That gap is more important than anything your mind has ever told you. Because in that gap, you are still here. You are still conscious. You are still aware. But there is no thinking happening. Which means, you are not your thoughts. If you were your thoughts, you would disappear when they stop. But you don't disappear. You're still here. Awake. Present. Aware. This is the direct experience of what Buddhism calls the observer, the witnessing awareness that is always present behind the noise of the mind. And this awareness, this silent, spacious knowing, is what the mind is covering up every night when it won't let you sleep. Now let's go deeper. Let's look at what's actually happening in the brain when you can't sleep, because this is where ancient wisdom and modern science meet in a remarkable way. Neuroscience has identified something called the default mode network, or DMN. It's a network of brain regions that becomes most active when you're not focused on any specific external task. When you're daydreaming, ruminating, worrying about the future, replaying the past, this network lights up. It's essentially the brain's autopilot for self-referential thinking. And here's the key, it's most active at night, when external stimulation drops away. The DMN is responsible for what scientists call mind wandering, which is really just the scientific term for what the Buddha called Papañca 2,500 years ago. The mind, left to its own devices, defaults to self-referential storytelling. What does this mean about me? What will happen to me? What did I do wrong? What do they think of me? Me. The DMN constructs and maintains the narrative of self. And at night, with nothing else to do, it runs that narrative on repeat. But here's what's fascinating. Research on experienced meditators, people who have trained in mindfulness and awareness practices, shows that their DMN activity is significantly reduced. Not eliminated. Reduced. The storytelling machine doesn't disappear, but it loses its grip. The volume gets turned down. And crucially, these practitioners show increased activity in brain regions associated with present moment awareness and interoception, which is the ability to sense what's happening inside your own body. In other words, meditation doesn't destroy the thinking mind. It shifts the balance of power. It strengthens the observer. It builds the capacity to notice thoughts without being hijacked by them. And this is exactly what the Buddhist tradition has been teaching for millennia, long before we had brain scanners to confirm it. Dr. Jon Kabat-Zinn, the founder of mindfulness-based stress reduction, or MBSR, demonstrated through clinical research that even 8 weeks of mindfulness practice can produce measurable changes in brain structure, reducing the density of the amygdala, the brain's fear and threat center, and increasing cortical thickness in areas associated with attention and emotional regulation. 8 weeks. That's all it takes for the brain to begin rewiring itself away from the anxious, ruminative patterns that keep you awake at night. The Buddha didn't have an MRI machine. But he had something perhaps more powerful, the ability to observe his own mind with such precision that he mapped the entire process of mental suffering from the inside out. And what he found is what neuroscience is now confirming. The mind's default is to wander, to worry, to construct narratives. But this default can be changed. Not by force. Not by suppression. But by a gentle, persistent turning of attention toward what is actually here, right now, in this moment. If you're finding something useful in what we're exploring here, I want to invite you to subscribe to this channel. Not because I need numbers, but because this work, this exploration of the mind and its deepest patterns, is a path we walk together. Each video is a step deeper into understanding, and having you here, walking alongside, makes the journey richer. Hit subscribe, and let's continue. So let's talk about what actually happens when you lie in bed and can't sleep. Let's slow it down and look at it, frame by frame, the way you might slow down a film to see what's really happening. You lie down. You close your eyes. And for a brief moment, maybe a few seconds, there's stillness. The body begins to settle. The breathing starts to slow. And then, contact. Something touches the mind. It might be a physical sensation, a tightness in your shoulders, an ache in your lower back. It might be a sound from outside. It might be nothing identifiable at all, just a flicker in the field of awareness. But something makes contact with consciousness. In Buddhism, this is called Phassa, contact. It's the meeting point between a sense organ, an object, and consciousness. And the moment contact happens, something else arises immediately. Automatically, without your choice or consent, Vedana, feeling tone. Not emotion. Something more subtle. Every moment of experience has a feeling tone, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. It happens before you even have time to think about it. Your shoulder aches, that's unpleasant. A memory of a warm conversation surfaces, that's pleasant. A neutral sensation arises in your abdomen, that's neither. And here is where the chain begins. Here is where sleep is lost. Because the mind doesn't just register the feeling tone and move on. It reacts. If the feeling is unpleasant, the mind contracts, resists, tries to push it away. If the feeling is pleasant, the mind grasps, tries to hold on, tries to recreate it. If the feeling is neutral, the mind gets bored and goes searching for something more stimulating. This reactive pattern is what Buddhism calls tanha, craving, that deep, automatic thirst of the mind to have things be different from how they are. And from craving comes clinging, upadana. The mind grabs onto a thought, wraps itself around it, and begins to build. It builds a story. It builds a scenario. It builds a world. And suddenly you're not lying in bed anymore. You're in a courtroom defending yourself. You're in a meeting that hasn't happened yet. You're in a conversation with someone who isn't there. You're living in a mental simulation that feels absolutely real, so real that your body responds to it. Your heart rate increases, your muscles tense, adrenaline trickles into your bloodstream. Your body is preparing to fight or flee from a threat that exists nowhere except inside your own mind. This is the chain of dependent origination playing out in real time, on your pillow, at 2 in the morning. Contact leads to feeling. Feeling leads to craving. Craving leads to clinging. Clinging leads to becoming bhava, the construction of an entire mental reality. And becoming leads to suffering, dukkha, the tight, restless, agitated state that makes sleep impossible. The Buddha mapped this chain with surgical precision. And the most radical thing about his teaching isn't that this chain exists. It's that it can be broken. Not by force. Not by willpower. Not by trying harder to fall asleep. But by bringing awareness to the links of the chain as they happen. This is where the practice begins. And I want to be very clear about what practice means here, because it doesn't mean what most people think it means. When I say practice, I don't mean forcing your mind to be quiet. I don't mean visualizing a beach or counting sheep or repeating a mantra until you're numb. I mean something far simpler and far more powerful: watching. Just watching. The next time you're lying in bed and your mind is racing, instead of trying to stop the thoughts, try something different. Try watching them. Not engaging with them. Not arguing with them. Not analyzing them. Just noticing. Oh, there's a thought about tomorrow. That's it. You don't need to do anything about it. You don't need to solve tomorrow's problems right now. You just notice. Thinking is happening. There's a teaching from the great Thai forest master Ajahn Chah that captures this beautifully. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, "If you let go a little, you'll have a little peace. If you let go a lot, you'll have a lot of peace. If you let go completely, you'll have complete peace." He wasn't talking about letting go of your life, your responsibilities, your relationships. He was talking about letting go of the mind's compulsive need to grip every thought that arises. At night, in bed, this means letting go of the belief that you need to think your way to safety before you can rest. Consider this: has lying in bed thinking ever actually solved the problem? Has worrying at 2 in the morning ever produced a useful outcome? Has replaying an old conversation ever changed what happened? The mind tells you that it's being productive, that this thinking is necessary, that if you just figure this one thing out, then you'll be able to sleep. But that's the trap. That's Papañca in its most seductive form. Because there's always one more thing to figure out. The mind will never say, "Okay, we've thought enough, you can rest now." Never. That's not how the untrained mind works. It will think until the alarm goes off, and then it will think some more. The only way out is to stop playing the game. Not to win the game. To stop playing entirely. And you stop playing by stepping back from the thinking mind and resting in the awareness that observes it. The Satipatthana Sutta, one of the most important texts in the Buddhist canon, lays out 4 foundations of mindfulness. 4 domains of experience where awareness can be anchored. And the very first foundation is the body, kaya. Not thoughts. Not emotions. The body. There's a reason for this. The body is always in the present moment. Your mind can be in the past or the future, but your body is always right here, right now. When you bring attention to physical sensations, the feeling of the blanket against your skin, the weight of your body on the mattress, the gentle expansion and contraction of your chest as you breathe, you are anchoring awareness in the one place where the ruminative mind cannot follow. You are coming home to the present. This is not a trick to fall asleep. This is a fundamental reorientation of consciousness. You are shifting from the world of mental storytelling to the world of direct, sensory experience. And in that shift, something remarkable happens. The nervous system begins to settle. The parasympathetic response activates. The body remembers what the mind has forgotten, that right now, in this moment, you are safe. Try this. Right now, wherever you are, bring your attention to the sensation of breathing. Don't try to change your breath. Don't try to breathe deeply or slowly. Just notice the breath as it is. Feel the air entering your nostrils. Feel your chest or belly gently rising. Feel the slight pause at the top of the inhale. Feel the release of the exhale. Feel the settling. That's all. And when a thought comes, because it will, don't treat it as a failure. Don't get frustrated. Don't clench. Just notice. Thinking. And gently, without any force, return to the breath. The thought will pass. It always does. That's the nature of thoughts. They're impermanent, anicca. No thought has ever lasted forever. No thought has ever stayed. They arise, they linger for a moment, and they dissolve. Like clouds moving across an open sky. And you are the sky. Not the clouds. The sky. The clouds can be dark. They can be stormy. They can cover the entire visible expanse and make you believe that darkness is all there is. But the sky is always there, behind the clouds, above the storm, vast, open, untouched. The clouds have never damaged the sky. Not once. Not ever. And your thoughts, no matter how loud, how painful, how persistent, have never damaged the awareness that observes them. This is not poetry. This is the most practical thing I can tell you about your sleepless nights. The awareness that watches the thoughts is not disturbed by the thoughts. It cannot be disturbed by them. It is the space in which they appear and disappear. And when you learn to rest in that space, instead of in the content of the thoughts, something shifts. Not immediately, perhaps. Not dramatically. But genuinely. The grip loosens. The volume decreases. And sleep, which was never something you needed to force or chase, begins to arrive on its own, the way dawn arrives, not because you demanded it, but because you stopped standing in the way. I want to address something that I know many of you are feeling. Some of you have been struggling with sleeplessness for years. Some of you have tried everything: medications, supplements, routines, apps, white noise machines, weighted blankets, every technique the internet has to offer. And you're exhausted. Not just physically. Emotionally exhausted. Exhausted from the war you've been fighting with your own mind every single night. I want you to hear this clearly. The war is the problem. Not the thoughts. The war against the thoughts. Every technique that promises to shut off your mind is inadvertently reinforcing the idea that your mind is the enemy. That there's something wrong with you. That the thoughts are invaders that need to be repelled. And this framing, this war mentality, activates the very stress response that keeps you awake. You can't fight your way to peace. You can't think your way to thoughtlessness. You can't force your way to surrender. The Buddha taught a different approach entirely. He didn't teach warfare against the mind. He taught understanding. He taught that when you stop resisting what is, when you stop demanding that this moment be different from what it is, something opens up. A space. A softness. A willingness to be with whatever is arising, even if what's arising is discomfort, even if what's arising is a mind full of noise. There's a beautiful concept in Buddhism called upekkha, equanimity. It's often misunderstood as indifference, as not caring. It's the opposite. Equanimity is the capacity to be fully present with whatever is happening without being destabilized by it. It's the ability to feel the discomfort of a racing mind without adding a second layer of suffering on top of it, the suffering of, I shouldn't be feeling this. Or, what's wrong with me? Or, I'll never be able to sleep. The first layer, the racing mind, might be unavoidable on any given night. But the second layer, the resistance, the self-judgment, the frustration, that layer is optional. And it is that second layer, far more than the thoughts themselves, that keeps you awake. When you can lie in bed with a busy mind and simply say, not with resignation but with genuine acceptance, the mind is active tonight. That's okay. I don't need to fix this. I can just be here, something extraordinary happens. The nervous system receives a signal of safety. The amygdala, that ancient alarm center in the brain, begins to stand down. The cortisol levels start to drop. And the body, which has been waiting for permission to rest, finally receives it. You don't fall asleep by conquering your mind. You fall asleep by making peace with it. Let me share something from the monastic tradition that I find deeply moving. In many Buddhist monasteries, particularly in the Thai forest tradition, monks are trained to use the period before sleep as a practice. Not a battle. A practice. They lie down and bring awareness to the body. They observe the breath. They note whatever thoughts arise without engaging. And if sleep comes, it comes. If it doesn't, they continue practicing. They don't see a sleepless night as a failure. They see it as an extended opportunity for awareness. Ajahn Chah used to tell his students that if you can't sleep, you should be grateful. You have more time to practice. This isn't stoic bravado. It's a genuine reframing. When you remove the pressure to sleep, when you remove the desperate need for unconsciousness, something paradoxical happens. The conditions for sleep naturally emerge. Because it was the pressure, the grasping, the craving for sleep, that was preventing it all along. Think about that. The craving for sleep, tanha, was creating the clinging to an outcome, upadana, which was generating agitation, bhava, which was producing suffering, dukkha. The very desire for sleep was the obstacle to sleep. This is dependent origination playing out in the most intimate arena of your life, your pillow, your dark room, your exhausted body, your relentless mind. And the release comes not from getting what you want, but from releasing the wanting itself. I want to offer you one more practice. Something you can carry with you tonight and every night. When you lie down, before you close your eyes, take 3 breaths. Just 3. Make them slow. Make them intentional. Not forced. Intentional. Feel the air. Feel your body. Feel the surface beneath you. Then silently say to yourself, I am not my thoughts. I am the awareness that knows them. You don't need to believe this as a philosophy. You don't need to accept it as a doctrine. Just try it as an experiment. Say it once, gently, and then let it go. Don't repeat it like a mantra. Don't turn it into another mental task. Just plant it, like a seed, and then return to the breath. And when the thoughts come, and they will, see if you can watch them with a little more distance. A little more space. A little more of that sky-like quality. Not fighting. Not following. Just present. Just aware. You might find that the thoughts lose their solidity. They become lighter. More transparent. You can see through them instead of being trapped inside them. They become what they always were, clouds. Passing, temporary, insubstantial clouds moving through the vast, open sky of your awareness. And in that vastness, in that openness, the body remembers how to rest. If this exploration resonated with something inside you, something deeper than words, I want to invite you to become part of this community. Subscribe to this channel, because what we're building here isn't content. It's a sanctuary. A place where we look honestly at the human mind, not to fix it, but to understand it. And in understanding, to find the peace that was always already here, hidden beneath the noise. And tell me in the comments, what does your mind do when you try to sleep? What is the recurring thought, the loop, the story that plays on repeat in the dark? Not because I can solve it for you, but because naming it, writing it down, sharing it with others who understand, that itself is an act of awareness. That itself is practice. We've covered a great deal tonight. We've looked at the mechanics of the sleepless mind, the chain of dependent origination that turns a single sensation into a full-blown mental drama. We've seen how the default mode network confirms what the Buddha taught about the mind's tendency towards self-referential rumination. We've explored the difference between fighting your thoughts and observing them. And we've touched something that can't quite be captured in words, that silent, spacious awareness that exists before, during, and after every thought. But I don't want to leave you with information. Information is what the mind feeds on. And we've seen where that leads at 2 in the morning. I want to leave you with something simpler. Something the mind can't consume. Something that can only be experienced. Right now, wherever you are, just breathe. Don't fix anything. Don't plan anything. Don't resolve anything. Just be here. Feel the weight of your body. Feel the air on your skin. Listen to whatever sounds are present. And notice, you're aware. Without any effort, without any thought, you are aware. That awareness doesn't need sleep. It doesn't need thoughts. It doesn't need anything at all. It's already complete. Already at rest. Already free. Your whole life, you've been trying to quiet the mind so you could find peace. But peace isn't on the other side of silence. Peace is what's already here, underneath the noise. You don't need to earn it. You don't need to achieve it. You only need to notice it. And tonight, when you lie down, and the mind begins its familiar performance, remember this. You are not the performance. You are not the voice. You are not the story. You are the vast, silent, peaceful space in which that voice echoes. And no thought has ever harmed that space. Until next time, simply breathe and observe.